combination of production and consumption, prosumption, prosumer. And that is the narrowing or the blurring of the boundary between the producer and the consumer. And we see that in many different ways, that we now have increasing numbers of technologies that arm individuals to do what they previously had to go to an expert or to somebody else to do for them. The simplest of that, when Heidi and I were growing up, which is 1,000,000 years ago, we used to take a photograph. You wanted to photograph your family, you had to go to a drugstore, you had to buy film, a roll of film, you then shot the pictures, and you went back to the drugstore. They sent it to Kodak up in Rochester, New York, and maybe a week later you had it back. Well, now we have the camera in your hand, and it makes that entire process, makes it possible for the user rather than somebody else to make that process, and indeed increasing, better the process. And the fact is, I don't know how many of you worry about blood pressure, but you used to have to go to a doctor and say, "Doc, what's my blood pressure?" Now you can buy a blood pressure machine, you have it, it's your own, you do the job that the doctor used to do as far as finding out what your blood pressure was. And what's happening is that we are producing more and more technologies that arm the audiences, the users, and that changes economics, and I don't want to get into that as well. But in fact, each of us as individuals are creating value that economists by and large are not counting in the economic numbers, the metrics of the economy. And that's why there is a revolutionary change taking place in the economy as well. In any event, the line between consumer and prosumer becomes blurred. This suggests an approaching future in which viewers, in quotes, manipulate TV programs and storylines. Maybe they change the looks of the star from blonde hair to black hair or red. Make the hero lose and the villain win. Delete what they don't like in a program and put what they want into it instead. Insert a female lead where there was a male lead, and turn the drama into a comedy. Then send that version of your television program to their friends and who manipulate it further and put it online, and who knows, maybe charge for the new versions, and raising more and more complicated questions about intellectual property and so on. But the user is becoming part of the maker rather than just a passive recipient of what you produce. And finally, these are just a few of the changes taking place that are really important and I think not yet fully appreciated. But to give you some idea of what is happening, not just in the United States, I'd like to read you a few lines, a few figures. Even apart from the internet, these are not my statistics, these are somebody else's. Even apart from the internet, in the US alone, each day, there are more than 12 billion display and 184 billion classified advertising messages from newspapers, 6 billion messages from magazines, 2.6 million commercial radio messages, 330,000 television commercials, and 40 million direct mail pieces. Worldwide, in 2002, 18 exabytes, which they then put in parentheses, equal 10 to the 18th bytes, and I'm not enough of a mathematician to even know what those numbers are. Worldwide, in 2002, 18 exabytes of new information were produced through electronic channels, telephone, radio, television, internet, and 5 exabytes of new information were produced by print, film, magnetic, and optical storage media. This translates to 800 megabytes of recorded information produced globally per person in 2002, not including spam messages, which account for 60% of all email. Of course, bytes are not the only or best way to measure information. The article goes on and says, another indication of the information flow is the more than 1.2 billion landline telephones, 2.1 billion cell phones that are in use worldwide, over 1 billion people, 18.9% of the world's population, use the internet, and so on and on and on and on. These numbers blew me away. And I think they should blow all of us away. And we should ask ourselves what the consequences are, not just the consequences of those on us, but how what we do affects that entire process, and what the longer-term implications for society is. What kind of society do we want? The transformation of the media that brings us here today is therefore only one aspect of the far greater economic, social, and cultural upheaval that we call the third wave, which is racing toward us as we enter tomorrow. Welcome to the rest of the 21st century.
Excuse me.